Hello, everyone. Once again, on behalf of Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage INTACH and the INTACH Conservation Institutes, I extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Ina Hergert, and everyone who has joined us for today's talk in the Conservation Insights 2020 lecture series. I'm Dr. Padma Rohila, Director ICI Delhi. Our speaker for today is Ina Hergert, who has been working as a paper conservator at the Paulista Museum of the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil, since 2010. Since 2019, she has been the head of the conservation team of the museum. Besides handling preventive conservation issues, she works continuously to meet the demands of conservation and restoration treatments, mainly focused on preparing the works for exhibitions or as a part of projects, making collections available for documentation, digitization, and accessible for research. She holds a bachelor's in fine arts and specialization in preservation of graphics and documentation. The title for today's talk is Working on Reopening of Ipiranga Museum in Sao Paulo, Challenges and Advances in the Conservation of Collections. The Paulista Museum is the oldest public museum in the city of Sao Paulo and houses a permanent collection of over 450,000 items, including objects, iconography, archival, and bibliographical documentation from the 16th to the 20th centuries. The museum was inaugurated way back in 1895, and at present, the museum is closed for restoration and building of new areas. The reopening is planned for 2022, and the conservation team faces the main challenge to ensure safe and secure display of the collection in a building without climate control. These decisions are complex and several aspects need to be addressed simultaneously, such as the selection of objects according to their sensibility for degradation, the choice of most suitable place for the preservation of each and every item, and the adaptation of furniture for the new exhibits. The presentation will be reporting on these challenges faced before the reopening of the museum. Before I invite, may I please request all of you to mute your microphones. Please type in your name, organization name, and email ID in the chat box. And also type in your questions. We'll be taking those right at the end of the talk. So over to you, Ina, now.
So thank you to Padma, thank to INTACH for this opportunity, for this invitation. And as Padma told, my name is Ina Hergert, and I would like to present my experience with the closing of Museu Paulista, we call it Museu Paulista, for renovation and restoration, and with it future reopening. As Padma told, I work as paper conservator. Museu Paulista is a university museum. It is historic museum specialized in material culture studies. I've been working in museums since 2010, and since 2019, I'm the head of the conservation team, which has, which have 11 professionals, 6 conservators with specialization in painting, paper, textile, wood, and objects with mixed media. 5 members of our technical staff are designed for preventive conservation issues and are trained to execute cleaning and handling of collections. As university does not have conservation degree, most students who work with us come from courses like history and architecture, and they continuously integrate our team and participate actively in conservation works. Beside my dedication as supervisor, as Padma told again, I continuously work also to meet demands on paper collections. To give you an idea, our paper collection includes more than 80,000 images, about 200 linear meters of archives, and over 114,000 books. Closed in August 2013 for restoration, modernization, and build of new area, the museum is planned to reopen in September, 7 September 2022. It is the date of the bicentenary anniversary of the independence of Brazil. Currently, the museum is in the process of restoration and construction that began in November 2019. The conservation team faced the challenge to ensure a safe and secure display of collection in the building, which, as I told, will be without climate control in most areas. There is also need to develop strategies for preventive conservation in museum after the reopening. This presentation intends to report on conservation team participation in the museum's reopening project. Here are some facts of the city where I live and work. Sao Paulo is the most populous city in Brazil. Over 21 million citizens live in the metropolitan area. This city is located in the southeast of Brazil. Here's the map for you to see our geographical location in the country. Now I will tell you a little bit about our museum, the Museu Paulista, which has a popular name, Museu do Ipiranga, Museum of Ipiranga. Ipiranga is the neighborhood's name where the museum is located, and now museum is adopting this name, this popular name. So we are changing our name to Museu do Ipiranga. It is one of the oldest museums in Brazil and was opened to the public in 1895. The original project was to build an eclectic style palace-like monument to celebrate the independence of Brazil. The use of the building as museum was an adaptation that occurred some years after inauguration. In 1963, the institution with its building and its collection were incorporated by University of Sao Paulo. The museum is located in a park, Parque da Independência, and comprises an important architectural and landscape ensemble within Sao Paulo. It has French gardens and fountains to the north, the woodland, Horto Florestal to the south, some important architectural landmarks related to Independence Act, the mausoleum with the remains of the Emperor of Brazil and his two wives, and finally the stream of Ipiranga that passes through the north part of the park surrounding the museum. The whole set is erected as a landmark of the history of Brazil, the place where the emperor allegedly proclaimed Brazil's independence from Portugal in 1822. After reopening, the building will be fully occupied with public exhibitions, cultural and educational activities. With the restoration, modernization, and new areas, it will be possible not only to expand the exhibitions area, but also remove architectural barriers present in the building. For example, wheelchairs users will be able to visit all floors of the building. It was not possible before. Here are some images of before and after, after what we'd expect after restoration. So I love to do that, before and after, before and after. So the museum building has been closed since August 2013 due to various building pathologies caused by inadequate use and insufficient maintenance. The building did not meet safety standards, requiring not only restoration, but also modernization and adaptation to current fire safety and accessibility standards. During years 2015 and 2016, the building underwent a structural diagnosis. The museum team worked in parallel to develop needs assessment for modernization and new areas. These assessments were the basis for criteria to guide the restoration and modernization project. As it was inappropriate in many ways for the work of the technical staff and did not support within collection storage rooms, before 2013, more than 450,000 items among objects, images, and documents were stored in old building. Due to the risk of plaster ceiling collapsing in some rooms, the closure was carried out on emergency basis. The entire collection, workshops, and offices were relocated in houses in storages rented in the neighborhood Ipiranga. In total, 7 properties were rented, of which 5 house collection and the museum library. Here are some images of the properties and where are more or less they are located in the neighborhood. The building has 15 items and old library furniture of its collection that due to their weight and size could not be removed. The painting Independence or Death, this one, I will talk later about this, also known as Ipiranga Shout, one of the museum's best known pieces of art, as well as other paintings and sculptures, received a protection structure and remained in the building. All items were covered with metal structures, treated wood and synthetic fabric before the construction works began. These objects receive constant inspection by construction engineers and the museum conservators. So some large items could be removed, but some remained. Throughout 2019 and until March of 2020, the painting in the Ipiranga Shout underwent restoration. Unfortunately, this project could not be completely finished because of the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. So the painting was covered without the last steps to conclude the restoration. In 2017, the national competition was held to choose an architectural design aiming to eliminate existing building pathologies, solving architectural barriers, and improve infrastructure services provided to the public. The Sao Paulo-based architectural office H+F developed a winning project and also was responsible for developing the construction documents during 2018 and 19. Bearing in mind that the building is listed as an historical heritage in the municipal, state, and federal spheres, architectural and complementary projects require their approval before any intervention. The project was also analyzed and approved by Brazilian agencies responsible for the fire safety and universal accessibility standards. You can see here that now it is possible to reach by lifts all floors of the museum. The campaign to raise funds followed successfully. The museum is a public entity. However, to carry out the intended works, funds were raised from private sponsors applying a tax incentive law in most cases. In total, 168 million reais, approximately 32 million US dollar, were raised to execute the pretended renovation. The work started, as I told, in November 19 and are expected to end in January of 2022. It is planned that the reopening of museum may have a much greater social impact than before, expecting to reach 700,000 visitors per year. It will have triple exhibitions areas with an auditorium, a reception area, and classrooms. The new built areas will provide space for temporary exhibition and temporary storage, as well as building support spaces. For these new areas, The installation of air conditioning is being planned, allowing temperature and humidity control. So in the exhibition area you see here, it will be climate control, but in this reception area, it will be natural ventilation. The old building will no longer be used for support spaces except related to exhibitions and work with the public. For all other technical activities and storage of collection, a separate technical facility is planned to be built. For the technical staff, this future building has main importance, allowing to concentrate all activity again in a single constructed, designed in a single construction, designed exclusively for these activities. The new areas will be fully, sorry. The new areas will be fully conditioned, but the historic building will keep its original natural ventilation. The building, in the building only the noble hall with the painting, in Ipiranga shout, will have a mechanical ventilation system to increase the airflow in the hall. Priority was given to preserve the original architecture with minimal intervention in the building structures. The decision on conservation of collection was discussed between the team of architects, museum professionals, and the architect consultant for preventive conservation in historic buildings. The recommendation was to adapt passive solution. More careful selection of the artifacts should be made for exhibition in the historic building, as well as environmental monitoring and study of the building's behavior after reopening should follow. For exhibition of objects of organic and hygroscopic materials, a safer microclimate display case should be designed. The passive environmental solution are already to large extent given by the construction of the old building, construction materials, type and orientation of openings, solar orientation, etc. There are few possible intervention in the building during the restoration stage. I would like to highlight here some of them. As for gardens around the building, the removal and replanting of species that grew in the direct surroundings of the building has already been carried out. For subterranean termites control, which is a pest the museum must face frequently, a system of permanent pipes has been installed around and throughout the building to allow monitoring and placing of bites. So you can see here, all these plants has been already removed and replanted. Alteration of window frames to allow continuous airflow and natural ventilation will occur. Use of protective screen and to prevent entry insect is also planned. I don't know if you can understand. So these openings here in the square, they will be permanent. It will be. It is also expected the use of solar screen, technical glasses, and special films to filter out daylight. The lodges will be closed with curtains, which will be activated by sensors in case of rain and intense sunlight. The areas close to the roof will be equipped with external sun protection elements, such as breezes, as well as ventilation openings. Areas most exposed to light and increased temperatures will receive thermal insulation. The high rates of air renewal are important to eliminate the natural high humidity due to the building materials and the climate of Sao Paulo. However, they are worrying. The high rates of air renewal are because they can increase the amount of pollutions in the air, then they may attack the buildings inside the building and collection, and also have fluctuation of air, of temperature and humidity inside the building. Among the main concerns are particulate and chemical pollutions, especially in the first months after restoration and construction, fluctuation of temperature of relative humidity formation and microclimate, mainly in the south facade of the building. You can see here some average temperature values which are expected in certain areas of the buildings, and as you can see, there were simulated several scenarios, it is average temperatures, but they are still relatively high. Entry of daylight in some places, loggia, skylights, and door openings, among other, and situation of discomfort related to high and or low temperatures. We also worried about biodeterioration, insect and fungal infestations, pigeons, and the correct operation and maintenance of historic building in new area. And new areas are also important factor for preventive conservation. The conservation team asks to permanently hire an architect with training and experience in preventive conservation. So we need a specialist to accompany all these preventive conservation activities in the new building. So now we will talk about a museographic project. I will show some images of the projects which are going on, and what is going on now. So the architecture office Metropoli Architectures was hired to elaborate together with the museum team and the exhibit design. And here are some numbers to give you scale of the project. The historic building will have about 2,000 square meters with long-term exhibitions expected to last 3 to 5 years. So you can see that large part of the exhibition will be in the old building. The new areas located underground will have around 800 square meters to be occupied with temporary exhibitions with duration 4 to 12 months. As I told before, this area will have the necessary infrastructure and suitable condition to receive national and international collections that require environmental control. Currently, approximately 4,000 objects and images from museum collections are planned for exhibitions in a regional format or in multimedia resources. In total, 12 long and short-term exhibitions will be inaugurated in September 2022. Here are some images of exhibit design. The museum conservation team has followed the entire elaboration of the project and actively participates in all phases. The active participation, despite consuming significant time of conservators, is important to ensure that all indicated conservation demands are, as far as possible, implemented in the project. However, these demands contain several limitations, as the real understanding of historic buildings' performance for temperature, relative humidity, and pollution will only be possible after carrying out environmental monitoring. It is planned in the first year after the building's reoccupation to install all these monitoring systems and monitor. Considering the natural ventilation and absence of environmental control, conservators understand the impossibility to implement restrictive parameters. The strategy of working with air-conditioned showcases was discarded due to the complexity of its execution and maintenance. Instead, it is being discussed the use of silica for passive control in showcases, increase of ceiling or cross ventilation inside the exhibition furniture. The conservation team assists the curators in choosing objects and planning substitutions throughout the exhibition of artifacts most sensitive to degradation. Shorter exposure time and turnover of object or replica is considered an important institutional preservation strategy. For example, only few original paper documents will be exhibited. Instead, its images will be used in multimedia or replica, and scenographic objects will be exhibited. Exhibition furniture was conceived as a set of showcases, and I would like to list here some requirements and recommendations we provide the architects. In Brazil, we do not have an industry specialized in manufacturing of exhibition furniture for museums. In these cases, furnitures are often designed by architects or designers, and projects are carried out by set design companies in their workshops. And the museum showcases and shelves should enable the creation of microclimate with more stable environments, especially for objects sensitive to degradation. The exhibition furniture should also protect the artifacts from pollution, insect, drastic ventilation, relative humidity, which may result from natural ventilation and vibration. We're waiting for prototypes to start testing and monitoring the internal behavior of showcases. The criteria, we gave it lots of criteria for weight, for cross ventilation, for ceilings, for example, use of wood derived boards was not recommended due to possibility of contamination with insect, physical instability, and chemical pollution released by the materials. And for example, the painting of showcases should be water-based, electrostatic, with sufficient drying time. So these kind of criteria were listed in the contract of hiring of designers and architects. The conservation team recommended to eliminate daylight and limit and filter all artificial light. Different type of LED lamps are chosen to illuminate the entire infrastructure of the building. For the lighting of museum artifacts and paintings, we ask for indirect diffuse light. For showcases and the architect's proposal to install LED light strips that will be fixed with magnets in the proper position in the showcases. I don't know if you can see, this is a blue line, this is the LED strips. Our concern is that entire installation should be safe for handling and maintenance. And I will talk about a little bit work with collections we're carrying now. During the partial lockdown, which started due to spread of COVID-19 in the beginning of March of this year, all work on site at the museum was stopped. A small part of the team was mobilized to carry out assessment and monitoring areas with museum collection. All works for reopening projects took place virtually. The team met continuously online and used digital media to prepare, share, and discuss the development of current projects. The on-site assessment and preparation works for collection were interrupting, creating a delay, but the quarantine time allowed the conservation team to participate much more in the discussion of the exhibition of museographic project. In September, with the loosening of the lockdown, the first phase of project began, first phase of conservation project. The work on conservation condition report for all items selected for exhibition started. Currently, we have around 3,300 items to be accessed. The condition report has initial and sorting character. It allows to organize the conservation work by group of problems and estimate how many hours and professionals will be necessary to attend every type of artifacts. 6 report types were created: paper, paint, wood, textile and plastic, numismatics and object of mixed materials, organic and inorganic, with following information: object identification, conservation condition, general conclusion, and general description of damages. It is very important in this phase to identify all objects which are not recommended for exhibition or need an extended intervention. General recommendation is that all objects in very poor condition should be replaced. Report indicates as well kind of treatment needed with estimated time for work. General recommendation for exhibition, also time limits, indication of light intensity and type of assembly are given for each object. The reports were created as one-page Excel sheet with fixed layout and fields to be filled in. The control of workflow and process relevant information are organized by using Excel lists that contain relevant data about the objects, linked to photo and report, as well as work status. All generated documents are stored on Google Drives and accessed by links from control lists. Our conservation team is intensely involved in the work of planned exhibition, but it is also important to note that we are carrying out simultaneously our regular activities of taking care of museum numerous collection, participating in events, and attend several kinds of demands. So all it occurs in parallel, but we will be able to hire help, and we are already with help. Currently, we have 10 conservation assistants, and in future, a metal conservator and photography conservator are expected to be hired in the beginning of the next year. So just a detail, we are using for all this work on condition reports, we are using intensely Google Suites, and it worked kind of good after a training. So the team's biggest challenge is to carry out the treatment in short time and with all the uncertainties and difficulties generated by spread of virus and also institutional bottlenecks. And after the completion of the renovation in January 22, it is foreseen to establish environmental monitoring program in the building in order to implement adjustments. All collection after being exposed must undergo periodic surveys to assess their state of conservation. In an event of any observed degradation process, a plan for removing of objects from exhibition and replacing it must be prepared. After renovation and opening, it will be very important to establish procedures for the operation and maintenance of the building and its facilities in accordance with the request of the collections conservation team. We look forward to see the results of many years of dedicated work and celebrate the reopening of the Museu Paulista in 2022. And I would like to give here special thanks to my colleagues and friends, Juliana Saft, Claudia Sintra and Flavia Urzua, who helped me to prepare this presentation. As well, I will thank the museum team and team of architects for seeding their images and information. And I also thank again Padma and INTACH for this opportunity to present our work. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. If with your permission, I think we'll take the first question that has come up, an obvious one. How did the change of name come to pass? I mean, how did you manage the change of name of the museum? That's a question from Nick Boyce from UK. So thank you, Nick, for the question. So, Ina, the question is, how did the change of name of the museum come to pass?
Okay. It is still in progress. That's why I'm using the official name of the museum, Museu Paulista of University of Sao Paulo. But the museum is popularly known as Museum of Ipiranga. So all names related to the new opening, to reopening, now we use the name New Museum of Ipiranga. So if you see the website of the project of the reopening, there is a web page for the web page for reopening. It used this new name, but if you go to the website of our museum, it is still Museu Paulista and the logo is still Museu Paulista. It is there is a team working of a transition, of creating new logos and creating implementing new name. But we are still in transition time. It is a little bit, so official name is Museu Paulista, but if we we diffused all information to new museum, which will be in the building, we call it New Museum of Ipiranga. I don't know if it is clear. No, it is still in transition. So it is like two projects. Like opening of the museum is considered to be a project, and it has this name and all logos related to it. But if you see all our contracts, if you see, for example, official documents of the museum, it's still Museu Paulista.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what in your opinion is the most important thing you have learned in coping with your expectation based on European recommendation and the reality of a museum in a tropical climate, middle income country like Brazil?
Yes. It is really a lesson for us. We are still learning, and I think that we will learn a lot when the museum will be reopened. We have all the standards and we have all this knowledge, but we know that reality is sometimes different, and implementation of recommendation, it's also it's a challenge, you know, because, for example, now we have architects who design it, but it will be not them who will execute them. As I said to you, we don't have industry specialized in museum equipments, for example. So we learned that participation of conservation team in all phases is very important. It is very time consuming, but it's very important that we discuss it in all phases. That, for example, we receive all plans, we receive all documentation related to the project, we read it, we give official response. So we give a written report about this documentation, and we have lots of meetings to discuss the solution. So we work like this since the beginning. And so we can prepare and implement some strategies, like not to exhibit significant object or not to exhibit sensitive objects. It is an important strategy. It's not easy to implement that because curators want to show some object. It's important to show some objects, but we discuss of substitution or strategies to rotate the images. So we learn to work with these flexibilities, you know, and we will learn also, we learn to participate, to argue, to negotiate, and also to explain. And we also learn to observe, to create strategies to observe and make decisions, set priorities. So this is, I think, the most, for me personally, I think it is very important to learn.
Again, to reiterate the question, once in reality the museum does open and you see the parameters a little different or going away from the European recommendations, as Juliana pointed out. So what would be your coping mechanism then? I mean, is it a compulsion to stick to these parameters, or would you be then, you know, I wouldn't use the word compromise, but would you be then sticking to the ones that in reality, in practicality, are what you are seeing there through the environmental monitoring and adjust to that?
Yes. So the good part is that we had this, we have the experience of working in the museum. A textile conservator executed long 4 years of monitoring of the building. So we have some numbers already for relative humidity and temperatures, and also computer simulation were executed by Greenwood company. It was ordered by architects company H+F, and we have their simulation. What we saw, it is not much different of what was before. We could compare. So we more or less know how the building will behave, and we are preparing for this. We did like map of risks already. We have already this vision, what risk we expect. And we're trying to prepare. For example, we already look for hotter, where it will be more heat in these rooms. So we see what kind of ventilation system can be installed. It's still not implemented, but we really think to implement that. And then, of course, I think our strategy will be to look at the object, because there are some objects which are sensitive and which the other objects are not sensitive, not so sensitive. So we will observe, I think. Now we try to not exhibit very sensitive images. We will look for the furniture. So we will have prototypes, we will test these prototypes. We try to create the furniture which will be adequate for ventilation or ceiling. So, and we are preparing to rotate the objects and take them out of the exhibition if it's necessary. So the curator are aware, the educational teams, the communication team is already aware of this problem that they can occur. So we try to prepare to that. And yes, we will have to deal with that, because it is the place where where the exhibition will be. So we cannot change it. So we will just try to adapt.
Since there are no questions, I have one more. If not wood for the exhibition material, which is the preferred material that they are looking for? You said wood would not be your first preference for designing the exhibit showcases.
We are,
the materials
yes,
that people are looking out and testing or
we are,
prototypes with?
oh, sorry. So we are, our recommendation was using metal structures or any inorganic material, like there are new materials present, but I think it will be metal and then glass. And this metal should be painted with painting which is water based. So it is a little bit challenge for architects because how you're going to do this painting if you have to assemble the furniture in the building already. So there are some challenges with the ceiling, which kind of ceiling you will be able to do. There are no, the showcases are large. Some of them have like 2 meters for 2.50 meters, and you don't have glass, for example, for of this size. So you have to have ceiling in the middle of the glasses. They are not happy about this. The architects are not, they're not happy, but they asked us, is it really necessary to seal? But we like, our option was to seal it, for example. So you will have this all materials working together, and we are expecting the prototypes to test them. I think it will be in the next year or January. We will receive already some prototypes and see how these materials work together. And stability of this material is very important as well, because we will exhibit some very heavy objects. So it has to be all tested, and now we discuss it is with architects.
Thank you.
I could answer the question.
Yeah. The next question is the museum aligned to any climate change agenda?
I think we didn't discuss it especially. We know that the climate is changing because we feel it. You know, we feel it on our skin. I don't know if I can say so, but we have some very hot months. For example, this September was very hot, and it's not usual. Or we have heat waves, you know, or very dry months in August, for example, that we have, or we have several months without rains, and then there is strong rain. So we know that is coming. It is, this is changing because we live it already, this climate change. And what we try to is that we are prepared for this kind of extreme situations, like door openings, or if it's too hot, that we install some ventilation system. It is also how you're going to the visitors, how you're going to conduct the visitors in this kind of periods where it is too hot, just too hot in the museum. So I think there will be several strategies adapted to this extreme weather condition. I think, for example, these curtains, which will be activated if it's too much sunlight or it is strong rain, they will be activated to protect from the entry of the water in the lodges. Yeah. So what I will say, we prepare for extreme situation. We discuss the extreme situation which come with the extreme weather conditions.
I think the question is more so that since there was a very, there was an intentional change not to include air conditioning.
Okay.
Was, you designed the museum to be with the natural ventilation and to acclimatize with the climate. So was this also a conscious decision pushed by some climate change agenda as part of the museum development, or was it just, the reasoning being maybe financial reason which pushed the fact that you consciously avoided an air conditioning or anything which is like, let's say a museum, a controlled environment museum, against museum control, environmental control, and chose this kind of design? That I think was the question.
I understand now.
I think, am I right? Was that the question, the main stress of the question? So if you could, was that the agenda, the climate change, the fact that we are looking at, because there is a push towards green buildings in museums, and yours is a very fine example where we see some kind of practical approach towards that. So is this within that agenda, or was this just a coincidence that you opted for a
I
non?
think that we didn't use it the word a climate agenda, but it was a conscious decision looking for sustainability. So first of all, museum building, it's a part of our collection. It is a patrimony, architectural patrimony. It is very well watched by the spheres. As I said, all projects were approved by municipal, how I say, patrimony spheres, which protect the patrimony. It was intense discussions because they pledge for minimal intervention, and we know that installing air conditioning, it is a huge intervention in the building. So it is one part of the decision, preserving the building, minimal intervention. Then we talked also with air conditioning specialists, and it is very hard. It is very hard to, because as you see the museum, I don't know if you can see it here. The museum has lots of openings. You see the size of the doors and the corridors here. You see lots of openings. So to have an air conditioning who will work to reach the parameter, it is huge air conditioning, and it is also lots of costs, because it is high cost also, and for high cost for energy and high cost for maintenance. And we also now in the phase in Sao Paulo and in Brazil that we have lots of experience of air conditioning in adapted buildings and also new construction. We work of air conditioning in buildings who store the collection, and we know how problematic it is to reach the parameters, because our building has mostly poor qualities, and the maintenance needs a very special engineers. My friend Juliana always say that you have to think of air conditioning in the museum like it is in a hospital. It is this kind of precision, and we know that is not working well in many institutions, and if air conditioning is not working well, it is a risk. So Claudio Carvalho, which was our consulting, worked strongly with Shin Macau, who developed the whole study of preventive conservation in historical building. And we use it, I didn't quote him here, but we use this kind of argument. So you have to use the passive solutions which are already given by this building. It will improve a lot after restoration, because building was not correctly occupied. And so there will be several adaptations. So we expect the building will improve its own passive solutions, and only special areas, which is new area, which will receive air conditioning. So only this area, and we will work with this situation and we will adapt to that. I don't know if became clear, but this is what our discussion.
I think it's absolutely clear now. In fact, Nick has now said, yes, thank you. It's our responsibility to mitigate against the production of greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide in order to limit the global warming. I think it's an excellent idea. And we don't have any more questions, but I think all the best. Me personally, I think we'll be looking out to the performance of the building. It's an excellent solution, a very well-balanced approach, keeping the building structure, the adaptation of the building, as well as the collection, and as you rightly said, the passive invasion, and hopefully more data will come once the building opens.
Yeah.
Just start moving in, and I wish you all the success, to you and your team. You're doing a grand job.
Thank you.
Museum seems to be very inspiring, and hopefully in future I'll get a chance to go visit it as well. So, thank you so
You're
much
all
for the
welcome.
talk. There are no more questions there, so it's
Thank
thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us, and all the best. See you again.
thank you. Thank you very
Once,
much.
yeah, we'll have a talk once you have opened the museum, and maybe we'll get to see. In
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.